We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And today we are coming back. We took a little trip away from Agatha All Along, but today we're coming back with an Agatha All Along inspired episode because, as y'all know, a lot of people, ourselves included, were thinking, hey, maybe we'll get the Scarlet Witch back at the end of Agatha All Along. And guess what? We didn't. But we're not holding that against the show. Still the best show that Marvel has put out, period, the end, done with the sentence. That still leaves the question, though, especially after Mr. Kevin Feige has recently said when and how Wanda comes back. Not if, but when and how. So the question remains, when and how do we get Wanda back? And that's going to be the topic that we're talking about today as we give our theories based on the slate and some comic precedents and how that might all happen. So, because we all know there is one very big I love the Scarlet Witch too, but not to the level Katie does. There's one very, very, very big Scarlet Witch fan on this podcast. I'm going to let her take it away, kick things off, give us a little background, and then we're going to start talking about how it all might fit.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this topic. It's probably one of my favorite ones we've discussed on the podcast because we all know I love my girl Wanda, but I also love being able to talk about the fact that obviously she's making a return. I've said it probably 50 times in the past 2 years. Whenever given the chance, I'm like, clearly she's not dead. Clearly she will be back.
No body, no death.
No body, no death. That has been our reasoning, and it stands to be argued with, right? Like, you can't be wrong. I'm pretty sure they said it in did they say it in Agatha or Venom? I swear one of the newer pieces of content literally said it, and I was like, oh, they clocked us. Like, they know. And I want to say it was Agatha at some point, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, there are a lot of avenues for the Scarlet Witch to come back, and I think there's kind of two to go down. There's one that I feel like is really obvious as far as source material, and then there's one that's kind of like, hey, we know the timing of the MCU, and if we want this to happen, it's not going to happen the other way. Doing number 2 first, because I think it's the simplest. Most people assume she's going to be coming back prior to Doomsday and Secret Wars because she kind of has involvement with Doctor Doom. We're going to get way more into that when we kind of head in that direction. But that being said, it throws out our first and probably best theory, which is going to be the Children's Crusade, and we're going to really deep dive into that one. But if that holds true, she's technically back in the next 2 years, unless they greenlight and speed through the next few things. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. Timing wise, I don't know. I still don't even know how the present MCU is getting to Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Yeah, I think this is such a big conversation that I have so many thoughts. So I'm just going to try to organize them. I was really curious because we are far enough away from Doomsday. It's 2026, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 26,
As
27.
of now, yeah.
They keep moving back, and I know at one point it's 2025, so I doubted myself there for a second. But 2026 for Doomsday, that is, we're at the end of 2024 now. That's a year and change, depending on when in 2026 it comes out, away. we pretty much have our slate set for next year. There are some things that, do feel like they're going to move that along. Obviously, the Fantastic Four is probably going to be huge given their relationship with Doctor Doom. The reason I bring this up is there is actually a comic run called Doomsday. I didn't get deep enough into it to be able to say whether or not it feels like it's going to be, the source material for the Doomsday film. The little bit that I did read, kind of my gut says no. So my point is, we don't even know what that film is going to be. So it's hard to say what properties other than Fantastic Four is even going to lead up to that. And then you look at it and you're like, well, Wanda probably needs something relatively mystical to bring her back, right? Like she's probably going to play in her own lane given what happened to her. There's nothing mystical on the entire slate. Now, I know some people are talking about Wonder Man and her relationship with him and how that could be a way in. That's the end of next year. Maybe that has something to do with Wanda. But I still struggle to think that with that coming out in December of 2025, even if Doomsday is I want to say it's the May release.
I think so.
Yeah, so what are you going to do in between to get her ready for Doomsday? And then what is she doing in Doomsday? Because we still don't know the plot. So this one to me is just too wishy-washy. There's too many variables, and the timing, to your point, is too tight to even really spend that much more time on it.
Yeah, I think it would be a little disappointing to not have her come back for Doomsday or even Secret Wars because we really don't have the time between them either. They're only a year apart. So theoretically, that gains us, yes, a year, but do we really have the time to set up what would make the most sense? I don't know. I also think, and again, we're skirting around the Children's Crusade because we're going to primarily talk about that. But when you look at the characters and the people involved in that, I don't even think it makes sense to happen before Secret Wars.
It doesn't.
I think this entire thing would have to happen afterwards. And so, as much as I want to have Lizzie back and I want to see Wanda on the big screen again, I really am not feeling like it makes any sense to rush her return so that she is in something like Doomsday or Secret Wars. If anything, and I have seen this going around online as a possible theory, people were saying maybe Wanda Maximoff from 616 did die, but because the Scarlet Witch is an entity, it just kind of goes on and finds a different Wanda, and therefore Secret Wars could do that and bring her back. Knowing I really want the Children's Crusade to happen, and knowing what precedes it, and what I know Lizzie wants, I really don't want that to happen. I'd rather keep her off the screen and wait for us to properly tell the stories that need to be told, because these are mutant storylines at the end of the day that lead into all of this. If we're not going to do it, like, it makes me sad.
And I do think, and we'll get to this when we talk about Children's Crusade, but I do just want to seed this because you're kind of teeing me up and I refuse to let it go without saying it. I think that there are ways to do Children's Crusade and tie it into what has happened to Wanda so far. You can swap a few things out.
For sure.
Leave
Yeah.
other things for further down the road when certain aspects of the MCU are a little bit more developed. I'm looking at you, House of M, because to me, if you're going to do a House of M, I don't want it to be the first thing the mutants do, because it has to be like an established mutant thing.
Yeah.
And just to give a little bit of background of why we're talking about this, House of M is one of the things that precedes the Children's Crusade, right? It's House of M, Avengers Disassembled, Children's Crusade. That's how it goes. That's Wanda's trajectory. But I think you can actually swap out MOM and say what happened to her at the MOM could be what sets up Children's Crusade. Then when we're, even further along with the mutants, because you have to have some mutants for Children's Crusade, then once that aspect is really built out in a few years, then you can do House of M, because it's going to be that much more devastating than, ooh, we got the X-Men for the first time, now we're going to get House of M.
Yeah, and so I think I don't want to skirt around it anymore, so let's just put a bow on the whole Doomsday thing. If they're going to rush her back,
don't do it.
Yeah, don't. Please.
Just
I want
simply
to
leave
see
it
her
go
on the screen, but you've made me wait 2 years anyway. Honestly, if they had done it during Agatha All Along, at least I could have made some more sense of it. That was your opportunity.
Agreed.
Unless they do it during Vision Quest, which, again, very little timing on that. They have kind of started the very early bits of it, but we don't know when that's going to be coming out.
It has to be 2026. They've told us their slate, and it's full next year.
Right.
It's full. There's not even room. We've got one free month.
Right. And honestly, that's not even far enough along for it to probably be 2025.
Yeah.
We also don't even know if it would actually make sense for Wanda to come back in that movie. Or, I'm sorry, in that show. We don't, because at the end of the day, it is about Vision, and we are also assuming Tommy's going to be in that. That's kind of the big, like, Wanda, theoretically, because Agatha was Wanda's villain, had Wiccan slash Billy, and now Tommy's going to be with Dad in his show. So theoretically, that's kind of the mindset. That being said, I don't really know where it makes sense for Wanda to show up in that and how she'd show up in that. I don't. I don't think it would make sense. All that being said, if they're going to, they're going to. I can't undo that. But let's talk about what we think would make the most sense, and that is the Children's Crusade. To give a very, 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 very high level kind of thing, because there's a lot to it, and really you should do a summary, like read on it, because it's a very interesting comic book line or series. Like, it's so interesting. I think it's 6 or 7 issues. Very interesting. But if I'm going to just summarize it in about a sentence, pretty much Wiccan decides to go find the Scarlet Witch slash his mother and try to prove that she's innocent for her crimes. And the Young Avengers are really with him. They back him, and they go and they find the Scarlet Witch and they bring her back. That is like a one sentence, very high level overview. A lot of crap happens, and I don't want to get too into the details of it because there is a lot that has to happen to set it up, but it all really starts to hinge on the Young Avengers, which we already know are forming. We have Kamala, and she's obviously already been recruiting Kate. We already have Billy now. We've seen Patriot. We don't have a Hulkling.
Cassie.
Oh, yes, we have a Cassie. We are moving towards a Tommy.
We may have an Iron Lad. We've already seen Kang, and that would be an easy recast.
Yeah, I think that's been the question.
Yeah.
Because I remember us questioning that already forever ago when we did the Young Avengers episode, way before Loki season 2. Like, I'm pretty sure we've just been like, hey, are we gonna see an Iron Lad, or what are we doing? I don't know, but I do think we're very clearly starting to see the pieces come together, even if it is initially only like 5 or 6 of them to start, and then you do maybe adopt in a Hulkling at some point, and you do bring in an Iron Lad. I think it would be a little weird to not do an Iron Lad at all.
Agreed.
He forms them, but it doesn't seem like that's what they're doing because Kamala is out here being the one recruiting. And also she's kind of in and out deciding, like in the comics, she's not really like an OG member. That being said, we are moving toward a Young Avengers film. We don't have any knowledge of when that's going to be. We do, as T had mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we do have a few open spots still. Random movies, no titles, just relative dates. Young Avengers would make a lot of sense. We are seeing them. I don't know how that's going to work because, again, if you want Billy, you're going to need Tommy, and then we're going to need Vision Quest. Like, timing is all an issue for all of this.
Yeah.
It's just giving me a headache.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, we recently did, I think it was a Sister Scoop, where we talked about how excited we were that Marvel gave us a full year schedule, and they were like, hi, here's how you need to spend your time for the next year. And that for them is a huge step forward in making me less anxious, because that's obviously what keeps Kevin Feige up at night is my anxiety. But at the same time, while we got 2025, there are some very big things happening in 26 and 27, and some very big holes, and some things that are being set up that do not have dates that have been confirmed, right? We obviously have Vision Quest, whatever Young Avengers thing we're doing. Now Black Panther 3, which was a new thing that just got confirmed. Thank you, Denzel Washington. And there are definitely other things that are in early stages of development, potentially a Moon Knight 2, all of that. Midnight Suns we've talked about potentially. Blade doesn't have a date. The reason I point all of this out is basically we've got a nice idea of what we're doing for the next 13 months. After that, there are only 2 stakes in the sand in the form of Doomsday and Secret Wars. Everything else is a variable. Anybody who does any math ever, which is me, not if I can help it, knows that it's really hard to solve something if you have more than one variable. If you only have X, you can solve for X. But if you have X and Y, it's infinitely more steps. And so trying to figure out, okay, we know this is a blank movie. This is maybe a blank film. Then you have Bob Iger talking about they want to do less, yet somehow in 2025, there's not a week off except for the month of September. And so, like, are they even listening to Bob Iger? I'm not sure. That's a whole nother variable. If they are listening to him, that just extends timelines on everything. anything because they need to squish all this stuff in, apparently, that, sets up other stuff. This is my rant about the fact that it's very hard to plot all of this out because we simply don't know, other than 2 tentpole films, what's going to happen after next year. And if you're looking at the end of a phase, or more than the end of a phase, the end of a saga, think about what we looked at the end of the Infinity Saga. It was nothing. One, it was a planned break, but then we got a pandemic, and then all of a sudden it was like, actually, what's going on? And then it was just like content dump. So we have only one semi-real precedent for this, and I have no idea what that's going to look like at the end of Secret Wars. That's also going to be potentially a soft reboot. There are so many things that are going to make this so difficult to be like, this is what's coming out and when. We're going to give you a guess, but like, definitely don't hold us to it because there's way too much that changes on a regular basis.
So I'm going to right the ship after that.
I'm stressed. What do you want from me?
I know you are, but I'm going to right the ship. I think that was a really, really good way of saying, hey, right now we don't know how the MCU is going to make this work, but if we ignore that problem, this is how we want to ideally see it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us exactly what we want to move into. So I gave you that kind of overview of the Children's Crusade, but it takes steps to get there, right? Let's start with where we are with Agatha All Along. We know Billy is now being mentored by Agatha, and they're going to find Tommy. Perfect, because you know what they're going to do after that? They're going to go join the Young Avengers. Okay? That's simple. I think then, and again, this is going to be the ideal way. This is how it's going to work in my brain and not necessarily how it's going to work on the screen, but I think this is how it should work in general. They join the Young Avengers. I think we do need to establish Young Avengers outside of the Children's Crusade for a lot of reasons. Some of them including there's other characters and groups we also need to establish prior to the Children's Crusade. But I don't think this is in any way going to make sense if you put this as their first movie.
Agreed.
It very much relies on the fact that they trust each other and have a good relationship with one another in which they back each other up, specifically back Wiccan up in the long run. They do have a little bit of a couple tiffs within each other and within the group, but they do support him and help him during this. Because a lot of this actually, just like his mother, he's an attention seeker. And I say that with a lot of love.
Because it wouldn't be half as dramatic if he wasn't a Maximoff.
Correct. And it actually literally all hinges off the fact that, like, he goes, to some people's perspective, a little too far with his magic. And they're like, oh, maybe you can't handle that. Maybe we're going to have another Scarlet Witch incident. And he's like, well, that's really messed up. And he's still not admitting Wanda's his mom at this point yet. But, like, he's like, that's really mean to say that. And it's kind of funny because it's also like a bunch of grown adults telling him this. Like, it's like Captain America and stuff, pretty much being like, yeah, so we had this whole problem with Scarlet Witch and like, we're a little nervous you're going to go do the same thing. So we're going to actually put you on like house arrest, essentially. Like this, it is kind of funny how this all starts. But that being said, like, they need to be established with each other and the Avengers for it to make the most sense because they're not just a bunch of kids running around. Like, they're still semi-governed by a group of adults.
Yeah.
Which you kind of need.
Yeah. So that is definitely an important piece, is that they're very much on the Avengers radar, which I don't think is hard to set up. If you give them their own film prior to the Children's Crusade.
Yeah.
So many of them have relationships with older Avengers. If you look at Kamala, obviously with Captain Marvel, and then Kate with Hawkeye. Patriot obviously knows Sam. So like there are these, pre-existing relationships that shouldn't be hard to be like, oh, you child that I know who is now suiting up. I mean, Scott's supposed to be dead by the time the Children's Crusade happens.
Because of Wanda, yes.
Yeah. So I think they're going to allow him to live, if I'm being honest, because that whole thing hasn't happened. But they will be like, child that I know who has maybe some abilities now is talking to other child that is known by other Avenger friend. Okay, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of like, you're going to be in danger. And then they're going to be like, but you all work together. That's great. So that should like not be that hard. All the Avengers know each other for the most part by this point. So it's more just a matter of like the adults all getting in a room and being like, meh, I guess we can do this. And then next thing you know, you have that kind of Avengers, Junior Avengers, relationship that you need for the Children's Crusade to actually function in the way that it needs to.
Yeah, and I think that all happens in a first film.
Agreed.
I think it's easy. I mean, Nick Fury indirectly is forming the Young Avengers. Let's not forget that Kamala stole his iPad, or not even, it's not an iPad. It's like such a far advanced piece of technology. But let's not forget that, like, indirectly, Nick Fury is responsible for yet another group forming. Either way, I think that's your first movie, right? I think that's simple. And I think that could happen before Secret Wars and Doomsday. I also think I could see it happening after. I think you could bring in some of those missing pieces if you wait until Secret Wars. Like, we don't have a Hulkling. We've been playing in the Skrull and Kree area for like a million years, it feels like at this point. We obviously just had the Marvels. We had Secret Invasion. Like, we just had two very prominent pieces that wrapped around this thing. I mean, a little bit more with the Skrulls, I think. Well, the Marvels was both, but obviously Secret Invasion was a lot more with the Skrulls.
I mean, we've had the Kree since Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, in 2014.
Well, that's what I mean. And so, like, we've been interacting with them in different ways for a long time. And obviously, Captain Marvel is kind of the one pioneering, I would say, that entire storyline because she is the most wrapped up into it. And I think it makes the most sense for it. But we don't have a Hulkling. We've never been given the impression we're going to have a Hulkling. Kree and Skrull are still not getting along, my guys. Like, that's still not happening. So I'm not going to sit there and say, like, it's not possible that a Kree and a Skrull did have a child together, but it doesn't look like the political climate is anywhere close to that being something I could see even being in the minds of one of them. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, the whole point of him is that he is like a huge anomaly and everybody's like, oh my God. And like,
well, he's
what
the
are
unifier.
you?
Yeah, he's the unifier.
So maybe, I don't know, but again, we've never seen him, so he's either going to just appear or he's a Secret Wars kind of implant. And then, like I said, we have Iron Lad, who is technically a variant of Kang. It's the young version of Kang. We could have him show up. Like, I think you have the aspects. Don't forget who he is either. He's Nathaniel Richards. Hello, the Fantastic Four. Like, don't forget that, guys. So I think if we wait till after the fact, we can pull in those missing pieces. I also really say that because everything that's going to happen here makes sense to happen after we see Secret Wars specifically. We don't have X-Men, not officially. We thought Deadpool was going to do it. We did a whole episode on how we were like, hey, it's a little confusing because they said that this was what Deadpool was going to do, but he didn't really super bring the X-Men in, so we're not really sure where this is going to happen. Then we defaulted to Secret Wars again. What else is new? That being said, we need the X-Men for the storyline as well. They're a huge factor, including Magneto, because at least in this story, Magneto is the Scarlet Witch's father. Therefore, Billy and Tommy's grandfather. Talk about a powerful line. Holy crap. I just wish, like, adopt me. Please. I just want to be in this family. But also don't, because X-Men 97 gave me some weird feelings about Magneto. So I take that back. I take it back. I take it back. I take it back. I will become their grandmother. That's what we're going to do. I will do that. No, because I love Wanda too. I'm really torn. I'll figure it out.
You could be the fun stepmom who's best friends with Wanda.
Fair.
And that's going to be the life. You can drink wine together while hanging out with Magneto. Billy and Tommy will be there. They're chill. It's cool. You get Pietro as a stepson. Like,
True.
Could be worse.
That's the route we're going to go. I am now officially a member of the Maximoff family. Although Magneto does not go by that name, I don't care. I am a member of the Maximoff family now, guys, just in case anybody was wondering. Do not insult me moving forward. Also, my husband does nothing wrong, okay? He is always right. Thank you. On that note, though, we do need the X-Men for this. Magneto's heavily involved because he's like, yeah, it's kind of partially my fault that, pretty much everything that Wanda did is low-key my fault. So he actually feels remorse. Also, as Taylor mentioned, this is after House of M. That doesn't have to be the route we go here, because if we do, I don't think we'll see her again for 8 years.
Yeah, literally.
But it is technically after House of M, so we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of that. And so I think that's a huge factor, and we can't forget what Magneto kind of does in that storyline as well. So it is very interesting who's involved. The X-Men are involved. The Avengers are involved. It's a big thing. I just think it needs time. As you were saying, we don't have the mutants. We really don't have the Young Avengers. Let's not try and fight it. Let's just do it all nicely and wrap it up. And maybe, as Taylor was also saying earlier, instead of doing House of M first, we could work it to do it after. It could still be something we do. I mean, I know Lizzie wants it. Please give it to her. Like, please.
I mean, also, and we've talked about this when it comes to X-Men 97, but if you look at X-Men 97 and then also the Fox universe and the X-Men that live within there, I know we have a name for that universe now because of Deadpool, and I can't remember what it is because y'all know I cannot get the numbers right other than
Oh,
616.
like the number?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. What
I
is
don't
it?
know.
110888 or something like that?
I don't know.
But that could be
I don't know.
Deadpool's. I don't know. Don't, yeah.
Well,
let's
technically,
just,
he
we'll
is
ignore
the
it.
Fox universe. Anyway,
Oh my God, you're
doesn't
right.
matter. I know.
I forgot.
That's why I
always
said Deadpool
forget.
told us what number it was.
Well, then where am I pulling 10888 from? Or 10008? It's something like that. Anyway, it's not important, but I feel like I'm on the right track.
There is one like that, and I don't remember what it is. The only two I remember are 616 and 838. So, anyway, though that is a separate universe, right? The Fox X-Men universe, they have done a lot of the really iconic X-Men storylines. We've seen Dark Phoenix twice. We've seen Age of Apocalypse or whatever that's called.
Not well.
No, and I love Oscar Isaac, so it's like not shade to him. It's just like literally one of the most poorly written films I've ever seen. But, they've done a lot of those really important storylines. Then X-Men 97 has really covered the rest of them. The only thing that we haven't gotten in live action, I think, that's like super important is Mr. Sinister, right? And he was actually hinted at in one of the live action films, but also House of M. It's one of the few remaining X-Men storylines that has not yet been adapted for obvious reasons. I think they had rights technically to the Scarlet Witch, but they didn't have rights to Wanda Maximoff because Marvel was the opposite. They had the rights to Wanda, but not the Scarlet Witch, which is why she didn't become the Scarlet Witch until WandaVision. So that's fun. But now that everything is owned under Marvel, they can do that, and it can be done right, and it can be done well. I say all that to say they should now do House of M, especially if they're going to try to put their own mark on the mutants, because at some point they're going to have to repeat storylines, right? Like, there already are rumors about The Rock coming in to be Apocalypse. I think they're probably going to do Mr. Sinister at some point. Those are opportunities, one, to rehash, two, to do something different. But House of M is like the kind of thing that could blow minds if done really well, and they need to do it. With that being said, it needs to come after this because, to your point, if it comes before, like, we're not going to get the Children's Crusade until Haley Steinfeld is like in her 30s trying to play Kate Bishop, who's 18. Like, it's just not going to work.
And you also already need the Scarlet Witch for House of M.
Yeah.
That's probably the most glaring thing to say about all of it is you need her for that. But as I was listening to you talk, I eat some of my words. I'm going to give almost a combined version of both of these possibilities. They could rush her back in for Doomsday. It's possible. I don't want it, but if it goes this route, I'd be okay. If they rushed her back in for Doomsday, she's back. Cool. We love her. She's being Mother, as she always is. You bring the mutants in for the next saga. That's what we've all talked about. It's what makes the most sense. Let's go. I want to see the X-Men. I'm ready. Like, I'm waiting. I'm literally like, the other day I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to watch, and I'm like this close to hitting X-Men 97 again, just because I'm like, feed me something.
I just want to feel something.
Yeah, give me the X-Men. Like, I'm like at their door banging on it, like, feed me. So say it's the Mutant Saga. I think it makes the most sense. Really, I do.
Yeah.
We can start establishing the X-Men. Hello, guess what? Scarlet Witch is still a part of that storyline too, guys. She is a mutant. So we have her. Maybe we managed to find another version of Pietro, picked him up somewhere too. Cool. Awesome. Give us a movie or two. Establish them. We have our shoot-offs. She's one who still deserves her own solo film.
Yes.
I mean, my God, really? You've had Elizabeth Olsen playing this role since 2014, and you cannot give her a solo film? Okay. Thor got 4. Okay?
And the fourth one was not good.
Only one of them was. Like,
That's true. That's actually, he's 1 for 4.
Yeah, you can't give her a single movie, but he got 4 at this point, going on 5. Like, no hate to Chris Hemsworth. We know, everybody knows on this podcast, we love that man. But I'm just saying, like, this is your most powerful Avenger. Even Captain Marvel's at 2. Like, this poor woman. Regardless, maybe she gets a solo film. You throw in a solo Wolverine to start getting in your new whoever's going to play him. Whatever. We get a couple films, get under our belt. That might only take 3-4 years if we're moving at Avengers speed. Let's not forget 2012, 2014. There's Avengers and then Avengers Age of Ultron. Then technically Cap 3, Civil War, I count that as an Avengers film, is in 2016. You have 3 big group movies within, what did I just say, 4 years.
Yeah.
We do that, and then boom, House of M. Let's break from the mold. Instead of having your 2 big movies at the end, you have a huge one in the middle that completely rearranges what you do for the rest of the saga. Do House of M, and then we have some of the effects, and then maybe towards the end, bring in the Children's Crusade, have the Scarlet Witch come back yet again, fix House of M's effects, and then we right the ship and, I don't know, lead into something else. Maybe then Apocalypse just comes around. I don't know. Regardless, I could see us doing that. If you bring her back, she's ready for the mutant saga, if that's what we do.
I don't hate it. I think it has some merit. I don't think it's my favorite of the 2 options where we're including the Children's Crusade. I want to run something by you because it's something I've been noodling as an alternative as well. Because I think one thing that we may have forgotten to mention that's like a small detail when it comes to the Children's Crusade is that, Wanda's just casually engaged to Doctor Doom for a hot minute during this whole experience. And, knowing we are getting a Doctor Doom film, while it would be a challenge, clearly, for her to come back. And we've talked about this on another episode where I got very distracted. But y'all know I do not think he should be married to Wanda during Secret Wars because that changes the narrative like in unfathomable and unfixable ways. He needs to be married to Sue Storm during Secret Wars, or it's not really Secret Wars. I'm putting a line in the sand here. So I don't know that the engagement can happen during Doomsday, but I brought up the soft reboot at the end of Secret Wars, which has been 50-50 confirmed, right? Even when you look at the comic, it is a soft reboot. You get some of the Ultimate Comics characters coming into the main continuity. There's just a lot of changes. What if coming out of Secret Wars, Doctor Doom is not completely dead, and for some reason he is able to convince Wanda to marry him? Because if you think about this, she has amnesia. She doesn't know who she is. That's how he kind of gets under her skin in the Children's Crusade, right? She doesn't really remember her history. She's so traumatized that none of that is really, there. If we're going Secret Wars and something happens, and I hate to use this trope of Secret Wars fixes everything, but I'm going to use it for this alt. If we go that route, soft reboot, somehow, as the realities start to knit themselves back together into one main continuity because we are closing the multiverse, the Scarlet Witch, the most chaotic being, and I say that with love, the most chaotic being in the multiverse, is able to reform or come back alive simply because of the way that the universe is reforming itself. Maybe the chaos magic is coalescing. I don't know. I'm just shooting off the hip here. She comes back. She doesn't know who she is. And the end credit scene is her meeting Doctor Doom. Now we're set up for the engagement. Now she's ready and Now she's ready for her son to come find her, give her a gentle slap on the face, and be like, Mom, this is not right. And then we start to go into the Children's Crusade.
I'm going to respond to that, but all I could think about was the trope that's always like, this isn't you. Look at me. Look at me. This isn't you. This isn't you right now. That's what that made me think of. Like, Mom, this isn't who you are. You're better than this. Okay. In response, I don't know how I feel about that. I see your thought process. I see how you got there. I don't know. That's the Scarlet Witch fan of me. Just kind of like, I don't really like it. I think your entire thing kind of hinges off the fact that she's engaged to him, which I don't think is an issue. I guess it also comes into question, though, like you brought up, how much are we dealing with Doctor Doom? Once Doomsday happens and Secret Wars happens, where does Mr. Man go? Like, what does he do? I don't know.
I don't either. I didn't read the comic after Secret Wars, so I don't have the answer for you.
Well, but I also just mean in the MCU, because he's also not really supposed to be in this Fantastic Four. Like they've said, he's not really super in it. He's not the dude. He's not the villain.
Well, right, it's Galactus.
Right.
Well, I think that, look, I'm going to utter the words soft reboot as an answer to all of your questions today. Soft reboot. It literally means there are no rules.
Yes.
I'm going to embrace the chaos and I'm going to embrace the lack of rules. As the one who normally holds the rule book so tight while she's sleeping, I'm going to say all rules are out the window when it comes to these 2 magical words called soft reboot.
Yes, I guess my other part of the issue is though you were like, and somehow in all the chaos, the Scarlet Witch reforms. And I think that's where you lost me at the beginning.
Girl got her powers through a descendant. She's a descendant of an entity that was woken up by an infinity stone. Okay, man? Like, it does not need to make sense.
But see, that does. That makes perfect sense to me. Not just like there's a lot of chaos and she has chaos magic, so therefore she just reforms. Like, I don't see that.
Soft reboot.
That doesn't still make sense.
It does.
No,
Soft
it doesn't.
reboot.
It literally,
Soft reboot.
you can say it to me as many times as you want. It still doesn't make sense as to how, like, the magic. You could literally just tell me soft reboot, and she gets brought in as a different version of Wanda, or like the Scarlet Witch comes in, like I said earlier, as a different version of Wanda, and I'd be like, I'd be more accepting of that.
Soft reboot.
Okay, so that being said, we're gonna throw that out the window.
Look, however you want to say she comes back, I just want to put out there the idea that knowing that Doom is going to be a main character for the next two Avengers films, there's an opportunity for them to play up that relationship and for the big surprise to be, oh my God, Wanda's back.
Yes.
She's engaged to Doom, regardless of the mechanism. I know you don't like the mechanism that I chose as an example.
Wait, let me fix it. I think we can fix it. I think he can be engaged to her in Doomsday. And this feeds into the theories that she'll be in that anyway. And then this kind of also fixes if then we go off of what I said about the mutant saga and all that. I think if we say it this way, we don't believe she's dead, right? That's kind of the whole thing. Even in Agatha All Along, they could not confirm it. Even, I can't remember if it's the producer or the writer at the current moment, but Jack Schaefer has said like they were specifically told they had to use the word gone and not dead when talking about the Scarlet Witch. What if she had taken herself off the board? That was the point, right? Like she essentially was like, I'm a bad person. Let me drop this cathedral that was pretty much a shrine to me on myself. She took herself off the board. Doesn't mean she's dead. Means she might just be holing up somewhere by herself, dealing with her issues. Probably also not 100% right in the head, only because she was under the influence of the Darkhold. That being said, that could set up if Doctor Doom kind of just moseys on along and finds her at some point. There's your start right there to justify how she ends up with him. She's still not right. Whatever version of her we get back, I don't expect her to be 100% normal. I mean, some of this is the writing and the lack of watching the source material before writing things, but she did a very quick downfall for herself from where she was in WandaVision to where she was at the end of MOM, or not even the full end, like that moment where she faces her other version and her sons from another universe. Like that is such a far fall from grace within months. Like this happens very quickly to this Wanda. That being said, I don't expect her to be in the right state of mind or anything when she returns. So maybe she is just kind of hanging out somewhere. And whatever happens, Doctor Doom finds her. That's how we get into this and get into Doomsday. And she's with him. And there you go.
I thought about that. I thought about it because I was thinking, how can we fit into the things that we already know are coming? Here's the thing, and I will not stop harping on this. He needs to be married to Sue Storm in Secret Wars.
But I don't think that's what they're going to do because I already told you they've confirmed that they weren't going to have the relationship between him and Reed be as chaotic and like intense. I don't think they're going to go that route.
I'm choosing not to believe that because it is a...
Okay, so but like if you decide to choose to believe it theoretically for 0.5 seconds, my theory could work.
Then your theory is fine. But if they decide to even be like, you guys know, I'm always fine with them taking some creative liberties with the source material. I think in a lot of ways they've been able to do that and enhance the source material so that it comes across on screen in a way that's better than maybe just going panel for panel, right? No, also nobody wants that, right? If we would have won panel for panel, we would have read the comic. But that is a fundamental shift to the source material that takes away, in my opinion, a lot of the craziness of it and a lot of the insanity of God Doom and everything that he's done and all of the relationship that should be with him and Reed. And to take that away, like that's an intrinsic part of both characters. I don't want to have that conversation because I know we've had it before and also like it will derail me for 10 minutes. But in my head, that's why I cannot think of her being engaged to him in Doomsday, because at the end, it should be, in a perfect world, him and Sue during Secret Wars.
I don't want to get too far into it either, but I do just want to say, let's not forget this was not the plan. Doomsday was not the plan.
Yeah.
That being said, they're making it work, I think, with the best of minds, and they're trying to put together what is going to work with all of this, with the Fantastic Four and all that. I think that's probably why it sounds like they're going to be downplaying the relationships between them, because they're like, hey, we don't really have the time to introduce you to them and then the next year have Doomsday happen. We don't, because they spent the past 3 years planning for it to be Kang. For many reasons, for not just the fact of everything that has happened off screen, but also just the reception from the audience. They changed it, and I don't think it's a bad thing because we're going to Secret Wars. I don't think it's a bad thing. Yet, I do think it's going to cause them to stray further from the source material in regards to the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom because of that.
Logically, what you're making sense. It's just very frustrating to me. Also, like, y'all know, I don't like typically read the comics. I read like synopses, I do my research, I come prepared. But this is a comic I actually read, and like I genuinely enjoyed it. Like 10 out of 10 recommend. Like, it's not a hard read. If you read like the main story, obviously there's 10,000 offshoots and that could take you a really long time, but I like powered through this, and not in the way that I was like, "Oh, I have to just finish this." In a way that I was like, "Oh my god, can't stop turning the page. It's so good." So I think I'm just like really protective of the one time I like truly read a comic and was like, "Oh my god, I'm obsessed. This is crazy." And to know that that's the one that they're gonna like super deviate from, I'm like, "Ugh, this is frustrating."
I get it. I also think, though, with the rumor mill saying that the Scarlet Witch has a good chance of coming back for Doomsday, I think you got to play into that hand a little bit for it to be a strong possibility. It's not going to go the way that it does in the comics, especially in regard to Sue Storm and the Fantastic Four. I just don't think it will. And as far as the Scarlet Witch, if we want to actually see, and again, when we say all this, the mutant saga is not confirmed. It's like an assumption,
Yeah.
but it's not actually confirmed. It's not something we all know as a fact. We don't know that's where we're going exactly. But to be fair, again, it's highly assumed. Highly. That being said, if you want to see House of M specifically, and some of these other things that we've talked about, like the Children's Crusade, and all of these play out in a way that I think is the most logical, which is following the comics in this space. I think the Scarlet Witch has done things that, yes, she feels remorse for, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad until we hit House of M. Like, you need something that affects everybody. Yes, she took a town and pretty much mind controlled them and other crap. Did she know she was doing it? Not really. I'll defend her forever. And yes, she completely murdered the Illuminati in another universe. Listen, if I saw Peggy Carter, I'd kill everybody in the room too. I'm just saying.
She also took out like 70% of Comertage.
And that too. And you know what? She was being reasonable. That's all I'm going to say. I will defend this woman until my dying breath. I don't care. Either way, I don't think those, because also the one is literally in another universe. Like, I just don't think that those are the same types of crimes than what she does when she's like, haha, no more mutants. Like, and that affects literally like the entire world on such a deep level. I think you do need House of M to happen beforehand. And so if we want to see it happen and we want to see it all done very well, I actually do think you have to push her into coming quicker and making a return sooner. I do. I've actually like really hardcore jumped onto that wagon as this entire episode has gone.
Literally, you just completely contradicted yourself.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I think the other part of me was like, no, you do really want to see her on the screen again. Like, it's been too long. So I think maybe that's part of it. But I kind of talked myself into it because I'm thinking, if the rumors are going to say she's going to be back, I could see it. And then I could see how it all plays out afterwards. Would I love her kids to be the ones who bring her back? Yes. But I don't know if I'm okay with it not happening because of House of M. Like, I feel like it doesn't make sense. And actually, a lot of this hinges on the more we talked about there not being any time, the more I was like, you're right. There's just like no time before like all hell breaks loose, essentially, for Secret Wars. There's no time. And I think that's actually what's been changing my mind this entire episode as we drive that point home. I'm like, what are we going to do? And I don't think you're going to tell that story without her.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. I just to me, you need a more established mutant population and we're just not there yet. I actually think if I'm being honest, where does House of M fit? I think it's like the equivalent of Endgame in the mutant saga. It is or actually no, I take that back. It's the equivalent of Infinity War.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, because I was trying to think what's the biggest thing.
Well, that's what I was kind of saying though, but I think you could break from the mold and maybe move it up a little further instead of doing House of M 1 year later, doing maybe the Children's Crusade and having like a movie in the middle that maybe we see some of House of M play out. I think give it a little bit more breathing room so you can kind of see more of here's an entirely different world because of House of M and how this all plays out and what it looks like and then the effects and then the Children's Crusade, maybe that could be they can really play that up or something. You know what I mean? Like, I think the mold doesn't have to always be the mold.
Fair,
And
fair.
so maybe we can move it up. That's kind of what I was saying. Like, I do think it is the equivalent of an Infinity War. It is for sure.
Oh my
I
god,
think the
can you just
last words,
imagine? Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Can
yeah,
you
the last
imagine like
words of that movie needs to be no more mutants.
yeah, when instead of Thanos will return, it's like not written, but it's her whispering no more mutants, fade to black, no end credits, no mid credits, nothing. And then it is just like the humans will return. And that's what I want, right? Like that
Or
is
like
the
it's
moment.
mutants, but you cross it out slowly and like do humans over top of it or something.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's the kind of moment that like leaves your theater silent and like absolutely wrecks people. And like we haven't had a moment like that in a theater in a really long time. Like even though we had some good ones, we haven't been totally wrecked like that. So yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's what I want. Kevin, are you listening?
That's why I think you gotta do, honestly, you gotta just bring her back, get her reestablished, whatever that looks like. I don't know. Again, maybe we just like are like, well, she never really was dead. She just went into hiding and she's just like in her own bubble. And she's like, everybody leave me alone because I'm kind of psycho right now. I just like, I don't know who I am and what I'm doing half the time. And we just get her in with Secret Wars, get her in with all of that, and we just start the mutant saga.
Well, doesn't Doom have magic?
Don't ask me about Doctor Doom. I don't know.
I'm fairly certain he has his own magic, so you never know. Maybe he's looking for a powerful bride, an equal, a partner. And I mean, he's not always right in his own mind. I mean, he's got a little going on, so maybe he needs someone who's his crazy matches her crazy, and maybe that's why it works. Who knows? Who knows?
Exactly. And that's the only way I could be like, if you're going to rush bringing her back, do it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Get us established and then let us move into that mutant saga. And she's front and center and we can play all this out. You're eventually going to have her kids do the Children's Crusade. Like, do it the right way. These are some of the stories that I think you need to do in order. I really do.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And you can do some Mr. Sinister or Apocalypse storylines to help establish the X-Men and the mutants.
Or the
within.
Goblin Queen would be so cool to see
That
in
would
live
be
action, guys.
very cool. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that they could do because they've never actually done that one in live action. And they kind of
Lost over it slightly in X-Men 97, yes.
yeah, they watered it down. It
Yeah.
was kind of, yeah.
You gave her one episode. I will stand on that hill. I loved X-Men 97, and it is my favorite show that's ever come out of Marvel. But why was episode 3 the only episode that we dealt with the Goblin Queen? I feel offended.
Yeah, that was surprising that they chose to downplay that.
Yeah, put it on live action. I've seen the Phoenix 19 times. Can you please instead have Jean Grey have a clone named Madeline Pryor and she becomes the Goblin Queen? Please, please.
And has a kid named Cable. Anyway, now that we've been starting to break into X-Men territory and how that might look, it's time to circle back and summarize by saying this has been our episode about how, when, and where the Scarlet Witch might return, the storylines that she should and could be prominent in as she makes that return. And we're going to be continuing to actually pivot into some upcoming content because there's actually some activity at the end of the year this year, which we weren't sure was going to happen. And now all of a sudden it's here. So Katie's going to give a little bit more details when she does her outro. But in the meantime, make sure that you're following on your podcast platform of choice, checking out the website. And if you are enjoying the show, you have the opportunity to support us on our Buy Me a Coffee, which is linked below.
You can also follow us on our socials, which are linked down below in the show notes. And that includes our new TikTok account, which is really going to be fun. We're going to start building that one. So go give us a follow and check us out on there as well. We're excited to finally be breaking into the TikTok realm, especially considering we've both been on it for like a million years. But we're very excited to be on it as a podcast. So go give us a follow on there. And also make sure you guys are checking out our YouTube channels at Sisters Assembled for our Sister Scoop weekly news segments. As T set us up for, we are going to be moving into Craven season. But before that, we do have 1 week off next week. We are taking our little hiatus week that we try to do every couple months. So we will not have an episode next week, but you can look forward to Craven the Hunter predictions because we did schedule that this time around, guys. Don't worry. We have
learning from our
episode.
mistakes.
Yeah, we're good. Don't worry. So we are moving into that and we are going to have those coming out in 2 weeks. So get ready for it and get ready for Craven and Aaron Taylor Johnson shirtless because that is everybody's Christmas present this year. That being said, make sure you guys are keeping up with Marvel and us as Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.